Welcome back to BarryT's Garage. I'm here with Ed Smith. Ed, thank you and good morning.
Good morning.
Today we've got some more questions people have asked. Thank you for sending in questions. Today we're going to talk about Babbitt bearings. We talked about Babbitt bearings in an old, original, like the early series flathead Ford is where it started.
Basically a Model T.
Oh, was it a Model T? Okay,
Yeah,
that's probably
Model
right.
Ts and then 32, 33 Fords.
The very first
V8s.
ones
had Babbitt bearings in
Good.
them.
Okay, first question about milling the Babbitt bearing block. The question is, does milling make it weaker? Are you weakening the engine when you're milling it?
I don't know what he means about question about milling it,
Okay.
because, for instance, they put Babbitt bearings. Babbitt is a material, not lead.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mixture of lead and several other things, like tin maybe.
Yeah.
And makes this mixture of stuff which is stronger, like a lot stronger than lead.
Yeah.
But lead, you can melt it
Yes.
into a thing. So even Chevrolet, I have one over here tore apart right now, a 216 that has Babbitt bearings in it.
Okay. So
And
they kept
sometimes
using them.
We can cut those out and put bearings in them, regular
like insert bearings.
insert bearings, yes.
Okay.
So I have a machine over here that once you put Babbitt in it, so you heat the rod up, and then you have a mold thing that this Babbitt won't stick to, and you pour it in there like pouring concrete or lead into a mold to make something.
Okay.
And once it's in there, it cools off, and you take it off, and you can carve it. So I have a little machine over here that you clamp that rod into,
Mm-hmm.
and it has a cutter on one end and real fine teeth. It's so fine, the teeth on this machine, when you turn it, and it's a hand tool, turn it, and it cuts that rod bearing out the size of the crank. So if you turn the crank down 10 or 20, then that rod Babbitt in there is going to be 10 or 20 thicker than the original.
Right.
Once you re-Babbitt it.
So you're adding material on the bearing to make up for the less material on the
crank.
On the crank.
Yeah. So that's kind of the way it is.
Okay.
And then the bearing, to do the broad bearing in the mains, the same way you have to have a mold, especially made for that particular block.
Okay.
And then you clamp it on there. I've never seen it done, but I have an old friend of mine over here, John Cook, over in Tempe, someplace with it, and he's a Model A garage in Arizona. Most people know him. Not the Model A person over in Chandler, but he has a Model A in his garage and fixes them all, and he can Babbitt Model T motors.
So he has the ability
He can still do that, yeah.
Okay.
He does a few once in a while.
Huh.
It's a hot job. You wouldn't want to do it in the summertime. You know.
Right.
We don't like any kind of heat in the summer.
No, like right
It's
now.
hot. It's hot enough today
That's
that
right.
you can Babbitt it right now without heating it up. So,
Yeah,
but anyways,
there's an engine guy joke right there.
yeah. So anyways, in that part of that, there you have to shave it down and some hand tools and not too much to get the clearances like you. So it's not a hard thing to do.
But it seems like there is a little bit of labor intensive.
Yeah, and time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, time. And
All right, next question on Babbitt bearings on early flatheads. The handle is Harry Ford. Say, back in the old days, if you were short on cash and your motor was rattly, you would just pull over and remove a shim or two, he says, to tighten it up in the way you went.
that's right.
So
Yeah, that's right.
so it originally has some shims in it that you can
Yes.
remove.
Yes.
Okay.
And even we have some, I think I have some stack of shims over here for 216 Chevy
Okay.
main bearings.
Okay.
But the worst thing is if people don't, just because the shims came in the engine package, they put them in there sometimes. You don't need them.
Need to.
Yeah, so sometimes you check it and take some clearances and stuff and take a couple of shims out or take them all out.
Wow.
As it wears, you can probably take them all out and have a nice crankshaft. Yeah, nice oil pressure. Yeah. But those Babbitt bearings engines only maybe 16 or 18 pounds oil pressure.
Oh,
They didn't
not
have
that
oil
much.
pressure at the time either. They didn't have a high volume pump or anything in the pump. Some of them didn't even have oil pump. A Model T motor never had an oil pump.
Right.
So
It's
it
just
had
dipping the oil, right?
dipping the oil. It had a dipper in the bottom of the connecting rod. That's one of my videos where I
Yes.
did that Model T motor, and we took it and put a Model A crank in it and stuff
That's
like
right.
that. We made our own dippers.
Yep.
And then also down the connected, the oil that runs down the cylinder wall
Mm-hmm.
goes down and goes in to the block above the main bearing. There's a hole in there, and it goes down and oils that main bearing
Okay.
from running down the cylinder walls. So that's not even any pressure.
So the Babbitt bearings were kind of splashed. There was
Splashed.
no pressure circuits
right.
or anything like
Yeah.
that.
And maximum RPMs, usually on a flathead, is sometimes, or a Model T motors, 3,000 maximum RPM.
Right.
So you normally run it at 800
Yeah.
RPMs. There was 20 horsepower
Yeah.
in a Model T motor in 1917 or something with Babbitt bearings.
Right. All right. Let's see. The next question we have is someone said he'd love to see you pour a set of bearings. Sounds like you've got the gear, but you don't really
Yeah.
pour it too often.
I've never done it.
Okay. Maybe we'll visit your friend, Mr.
We
Smith.
might if we call him up
Mr.
sometime
Cook.
and ask him if he's going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would let us come over and video.
I think we should put that on the wish list to do that.
Yeah.
That would be good.
That'd be fun.
The next question, how do you get the bearings concentric? How do you match them up?
If you're pouring a bearing, you just pour them.
Okay.
Then once you're all done, then you would line bore it. And they used to line bore it. We line hone now, where we line hone all the main bearings at the same time on our Chevy motors and our late model motors. We have a big long stone.
Okay.
And we hide. But those days they had a machine that sat on top, and you set the boring bar and you just bored one after the other one. There's only 3 mains.
Yeah.
So you board them all, and then you might even, after you get done boring them, you might take your common sense.
Yeah.
You get a knife in there, maybe a little scraper, and scrape them and give them to fit each one of them perfectly or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Because you can't really bore a machine, bore the first main, bore the second one, and be the third one, and be some kind of close
Yeah.
to being perfect.
Yeah.
So that's what you do. Yeah.
I see.
Pretty crude those days. The
Yeah.
whole motor was crude.
Yeah, well, speaking of crude, there's some. We've actually had multiple comments similar to this, and this one someone says, "I've heard stories that leather belts or leather soaked in oil could be used to fix a bad bearing."
I've heard that.
In a
I
bad.
never did it, but my
Yeah.
grandparent, they said that because during the war, they had to do something.
Right.
But the cars, just like a little story. I got too many stories, but anyways,
It's all good.
in our family, one of my cousins wrote a book about grandpa and grandma raising 13 kids in the 1930s, and part of that was my dad was the oldest one of 13, and they got a car somehow, someplace, and because my dad, it says in the book that all documented, my dad was the oldest one, so he could drive the car. But he knew how to drive because he watched the mailman drive his car. So anyways, they got, and everybody helped one another. So anyways, in the book it says that they load the family up and went to town quite often, probably down a dirt road, and probably 5 or 6 miles an hour. Just went down, you see the cars were slow,
Right.
and went to town. And someplace, then there was a guy walking along the street, they knew a man, and they wanted, "Hey, you want to ride?" He says, "Sure." Of course, they want to help you. He says, "You can sit on the front fender and hold on the headlight." And so he did, and give him a ride to town.
Wow.
So it's kind of funny, but
Yeah,
that's a true story. And
That is wild.
yeah, but the car was the whole thing, maybe 5-10 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah. All right. Well,
With
Stephen.
the belt, they would put a belt in it then.
Yeah.
Now I remember my dad during the war, and we come in. I have some tin toys and stuff like this, Tonka trucks and stuff. I keep one over here, one little Jeep. That's an Army Jeep. It's got tin wheels on it, and the tin wheels, right away you know what year it was made. It was made right after the war. There was no rubber available,
All right. Okay.
so the toys came with tin wheels on them
Wow.
instead of rubber or plastic wheels. Of course, plastic wheels.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad did that, put a 15-inch tire inside with 16 and blew it up. He had 2 tires, one inside the other one. At least he could get to town, 5 or
Right.
10 miles an hour.
And I think the leather in it was also just to get you there.
Yeah, just to get you there, back and forth, instead of walking.
Yeah.
Yeah, same contents.
Interesting.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay, so there was a transition period where we went from the Babbitt bearings in the industry over to insert bearings. And this person is asking, could you tell me if you know if the 1954 Olds 88 rocket engine, did it have Babbitt bearings or what kind?
It had regular bearings,
Regular insert bearings.
insert bearings, yes. A
Okay.
50 Oldsmobile, and I've had some of those. Actually, I've got a car here with a 52 motor in it.
Okay.
One of my special
Right.
cars. they've always had. I don't know if Oldsmobile, it had to be way back in the 30s someplace.
Yeah.
And that would have been a straight 8 Oldsmobiles. Even the straight 8s and 53, 54s all had a regular Barry.
Yeah, those were called the Fireball, I believe.
Yes, yeah, Fireball 8. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right. That's right.
But that's a long time.
Okay, so yeah, because Oldsmobile, just the brands were very different for General Motors back in those days, right?
Yeah, yes.
They had very different engines and everything.
Yeah, totally different. Nothing.
There was nothing interchangeable or
No.
anything. Yeah, they were very different. It was like different car companies within the company.
Yeah.
Someone's suggesting that if you take out more than 40, so they're saying if you do 40 over, it's no good. I guess
40 over on what?
Well, it doesn't
a
really.
Bore or crankshaft or what
he's not saying. I guess it's on. It was in this Babbitt video, so I don't know. Maybe it's an engine with a Babbitt bearing.
Probably thinking about maybe, I don't know, 40 over, because most of the time it's just general knowledge that you can bore a motor over 60 and sometimes 80.
Right.
That would be normal.
Right.
So 20, and even you can turn a crankshaft down to whatever you can buy bearings for.
Yeah.
30, 40, 60.
Okay.
And don't hurt anything, because it's only when you do something like 20,000. Is that 20,000 is what he was talking about there?
Well, he's saying 40,000.
40.
Yeah.
It's only 20,000 on each side of whatever he's doing.
Right. Right.
So then that's about the thickness of a piece of paper.
Yeah. Right.
A little bit thicker than paper. Yeah.
We use very thick paper here.
Oh yeah, we do cardboard. Yeah.
That's
So
right.
we have to, or it'll melt. You can't write on it. Your pencil goes right through the paper.
That's right.
If it's not extra thick.
Well, the lead melts as soon as you touch it.
Oh yeah, lead will melt in the paper and smear the paper all up.
That's right.
In Arizona, you have to have Arizona paper. It's thicker.
Right.
So it withstands the heat.
That's right. I want to tell you right now, this is the end of the Babbitt section, but Ed is suffering for you all because it is summertime in Arizona. The low last night was 84 degrees. We had rain. It's humid. And the high is up in the hundreds somewhere. I don't know, but it's pretty warm in the shop. There's no air conditioning. We don't even have a swamp cooler in here.
We got the doors open.
Well, the doors are open.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, so we're okay.
That's pretty good. Thank you, Ed. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining us once again for another Ed's Answers episode. Keep sending in your questions. Thank you so much for commenting with those questions, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.